Hi everybody, welcome to the presentation about how to fill out our questionnaire for the Living Trust worksheet. Today I'm going to be helping going page by page for those of you that may have a little bit of reservations about filling this out, because I know it looks like a lot of paperwork, but we're going to simplify that today so that you can sit down, fill out this worksheet confidently and get it back to us so that we can type up your binder. At the top of the page, Roman numeral 1, personal information. It first off asks for your last name. If husband and wife have different last names, put both of them in the last name slot. The date, that's the day that you filled out this worksheet. Type of trust, single or married couple. Well, this is an interesting question. For you single people that are unmarried, check the single box. Even if you've been living with someone for a long time, if you don't have a marriage certificate or a domestic partnership certificate, you're not married in California. So check the box that says single. For those of you that are married, if you have all joint assets together, for example, if husband and wife's name is both on the deed to the house, you can check married couple. For some of you, husband wants his own trust and wife wants her own trust, and if that's the case, I want you to do single. Date of marriage, if you don't know the exact day you got married, you're in big trouble, but you can put an estimate as to the day you got married. Obviously, address, city, state, and zip, county, that's all pretty self-explanatory. You're going to see that there's room for one email address. I want you to use the email address that you want us to use as the primary email. You're also going to see it ask for your home and 2 places for a cell phone number. If you don't have a house line anymore, just put not applicable. That's no problem. Now you're going to see on our worksheet is going to ask for 2 sets of information. Now back in the day, we used to do husband and wife, and the form would ask for husband's information and wife's information. But in light of the fact that we do have some same-sex couples, we tried to simplify it. So you will see client is going to be asked first and spouse is second. Now, I like to say, whoever used their credit card to pay for the living trust, that should be client, and the other spouse can be listed as spouse. It's going to ask for first name, middle initial, and last name. If you don't use your middle name or middle initial, you can skip this. That's no problem. I know for some of you, this question is hard because your driver's license and your passport and your birth certificate all say different names. And I want you to use the name that you feel the most comfortable using. But I always recommend, if you can, your driver's license is usually the easiest name to use. Now, it's also going to ask if you're a U.S. citizen or not, your birthday, your social security number. We ask for your social security number, not because we're trying to pry, but your social security number will be the new tax ID number for your new living trust. If you don't feel comfortable giving us your social security number, that's okay. You can give us the last 4 digits, or you can leave that part blank. And just know, we're not going to be able to type that information into the binder. You're going to have to pen it into the binder a little bit later when you get that binder. This is also going to ask your former spouse's name if you were married prior. Whether your spouse passed away or whether you are divorced, we need to know an approximate date of your divorce or date of the death, because we want to make sure you don't have any spouses that are going to come out of the woodwork after you're gone and say, hey, I was still married to that person. Roman numeral 2, this is another tough question. What is your approximate net value of the estate? Assets minus liabilities. I want you to give us an estimate about what you think your estate is worth. If you were to sell everything you have and take off and move to another country, Now, I don't need you to get your house appraised. I don't need you to beat yourself up over exactly how much money is in your IRA or your stock account, because we know accounts go up and down. The reason we're asking your approximate net value is we need to see how close you are to $11 million. If you have over $11 million, we really need to crunch the numbers. But of course, most people aren't close to 11 million, so I want you to relax and use guesstimates. Roman numeral 3, children's information. This is going to ask you to put your children's names, and I want you to list your kids, whether you plan on leaving them inheritance or not. Any biological children or adopted children you have, I want you to list them. You're also going to see that there's a place that's going to ask if it's his kid, her kid, or a kid together. This may be a little bit more specific for blended families, when he had kids from a prior relationship and she had kids from a prior relationship and husband and wife got married. We want to know the approximate birthday of your children. The reason we ask this is we really need to see if you have children that are minors. Some of you have a hard time filling out your kid's address because maybe your kids are still at a point in their lives when they're moving around a lot. Maybe they're in college and they're in the dorms right now, and next year you don't know where they're going to be. You can use your address for the children, and if you don't know your kid's address, that's okay. You can just put unknown. The most important information is that we have their name and approximately their birthday. There are 3 spaces for your children's names, but some of you have more kids than 3. I want you to just add in another sheet of paper to include the other children. You're also going to see at the bottom of the page, it's going to say, are all the children to be beneficiaries? Yes or no? We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you. And some of you plan on leaving no inheritance to your kids because you want to leave everything to the grandkids. Maybe your kids are all grown up and they're doing fine and they don't need any inheritance. Sometimes some of you have had a falling out with your kids. And I want you to know that even after this trust is signed and notarized, if later on in the future you change your mind about who's inheriting, you can always amend your trust. It's a very simple change to take kids out or put kids in. For now, we want to know if you plan to leave all your children inheritance and if any of your children are deceased. Page 2, beneficiary information. I know this page may seem a little redundant because you just put your kids' names on page 1 and now we're asking you to put your beneficiaries on page 2, and in all likelihood, that's your kids, your grandkids, your friends, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your church, charities, the SPCA. I want you to list each and every beneficiary by name. For example, my parents, they have a living trust and they have 3 beneficiaries. Me, my sister, and the Catholic Church that we go to. In space number 1 where it says name, my parents filled in my name, Sarah Rinelli, my address, and where it says share of estate, property, or percentage to receive, my parents put 50% of the house, 50% of the cash. Under my sister's name, they put Denise Rinelli on number 2 and her address, and that she gets 50% of the house and the cash. And for number 3, they put St. John's Catholic Church, the address for the church, and that the Catholic Church gets $10,000. Now, there are also some other questions on this worksheet on page 2 that may be a little bit more difficult. Question B asks, should this beneficiary predecease you, assets they would have inherited from you would instead be distributed as follows. Unfortunately, we have to plan for disaster scenarios. What if you and your child pass away at the same time, or they pass away before you. We want to know, if you were going to leave them inheritance, where should we redirect the inheritance to if they predecease you? Some of you, if your kid doesn't survive you, you want their money to go to their kids. If that's the case, I want you to check the first box that says, split equally amongst the children of this beneficiary per stirpes. Per stirpes is Latin for by the branch, trickling right down the family bloodline. Not for in-laws, just for the kids. But what if your child doesn't have any kids yet? Or you don't necessarily need the grandkids to be included. You would prefer that if your child didn't survive you, that it gets rerouted to your other kids. That's when I want you to check the box that says, split proportionally amongst the remaining beneficiaries per capita. Per capita means by the head. And that just means that if your beneficiary predeceases you, the trust is going to pull the money back and redistribute it. Now, some of you have kids, and your children don't have any children of their own. There are no grandkids yet. Do not check the box that says per stirpes, the grandkid box, if your children don't have kids yet. We are not talking about hypothetical grandbabies here. I know it's wishful thinking, but I don't want you to check the wrong box per stirpes if you have no grandkids, because people are going to say, hey, maybe they were a little cuckoo because they're talking about grandkids that weren't even born. Okay, question C. Should this money be distributed to the beneficiary after spouse number 1 dies, after spouse number 2 dies? What I mean to say is, do you want the inheritance to be distributed to the kids after one spouse dies but the other is still living? I don't always recommend this because, unfortunately, your surviving spouse might live a long time and need the assets for their care. It is getting more and more expensive to get old. I recommend that the assets be received at the death of both spouses. There's a box for that there. Now, in my opinion, page 2 is the toughest page in the whole worksheet. If you have any more questions or you get stuck, give us a call. We don't charge for phone calls, but there is also a cheat sheet that we give you. It's called Worksheet Instructions that goes over everything I just said as a reminder. Page 3 is going to ask for trust conditions. If you pass away, do you want your beneficiary to get the money immediately? Or do you want to put some strings on when they get that inheritance? For example, my parents, when they both pass away, they want me and my sister to get the money immediately. I have a neighbor. She has a daughter who's 16 years old. And she said, Sarah, if I pass away right now while my daughter's 16, I don't want her to get the money when she's a kid. I want her to get the money when she's 21. I want her to get the money cut into 3 pieces so she doesn't get it all at one time to blow it. You're going to see page number 3. We give you some of our suggestions if you want to put some strings, some conditions on the inheritance. We always recommend, it's tough to control from the grave. We recommend that all beneficiaries inherit immediately if you trust them. I'm going to skip to page number 4. At the top of the page, it's going to ask, what is the name of the trust? If you already have an existing trust, I want to be sure that we use the exact same name from your existing trust. And it's also going to ask, what date did you sign your old trust? Now, if you've never had a trust before, if you're starting from scratch, you can choose any name for the trust that you want. For example, my parents have the Rinelli Family Trust. I have my own trust. It's called the Sarah Marie Rinelli Revocable Living Trust. I know there may be other Sarah Marie Rinellis out there, but my trust is attached to my Social Security number, so I'm not worried if there's another Sarah Rinelli with the same trust name. I want you to choose a name that you're going to remember. Some people keep it simple. The Jones Trust, the Jones Family Trust. But we have some clients that are a little eccentric. I have a client that lives in Huntington Beach, California, and her trust is called the Cosmic Moon Trust. That's okay too. Just want it to be something that you're going to remember. The next section on page 4 asks for the trustee information. I want you to remember, you are the owner, you are the trustor, but you are also the manager while you're healthy. You are the trustee. So I want you to put your own name on this page. The next question, successor trustee financial agent information. This is the person that is going to be responsible for distributing the estate after both spouses are gone, or if you're single, after the single person dies. This is the person that you choose to pay all the final bills, deal with the funeral home, deal with the remains, pay off any bills, and make sure the beneficiaries get what you've allowed them to get. It asks for 2 names. Now, I know some of you are going to have a hard time with this because the question is, how do I decide who's going to be my successor trustee when I'm gone? Some of you have multiple kids and you don't want to pick favorites, and I can understand that. But I want you to think realistically about your family. If you pass away, who's the most responsible person in the family that can handle paying all the final bills and settling everything? You can have the others be backups. And I know there's a place for 2 names on here. You can have one as a primary and the other as the backup. But if you want to list a 3rd or a 4th, you can put it in the margins as well. In my family, my parents' Revocable Living Trust says that if Mom and Dad pass away, me, Sarah, I'm in charge. My sister Denise is the alternate, and Aunt Seal is the alternate to the alternate. What if you want 2 to work together? Is it allowed? Yes. Is it recommended? No. In the trust world, we kind of say 2 cooks in the kitchen is too many cooks in the kitchen. So, if you can agree on it, we recommend 1 and the others are backups. You are going to see the box in there is going to ask, do you want alternates or do you want co? Like I said, we don't recommend co. 2 cooks in the kitchen is too many cooks in the kitchen. The next part on page 4 is going to ask for your advanced healthcare directive. If you're married, it's got a place for both spouses to decide. If both spouses cannot speak, if there's a common accident, a car accident, some sort of earthquake, if both spouses are unable to speak, who's allowed to talk to the doctors in the family? And a backup, and a backup. It's a tough decision. In my parents' trust, my dad's, his documents say that if he cannot speak, my mom is in charge, I'm the backup choice, and Uncle Anthony is the backup to the backup. In my mom's healthcare directive, it says that if she can't speak, Dad's allowed to talk to the doctors. I'm the backup. And Aunt Seal is the backup to the backup. Are co-agents allowed? Yes, but once again, like I said, I think too many cooks in the kitchen. Some of you don't have kids, or your kids are minors. They can't be in a position of power, right? They're too young, they're too little, they're too inexperienced. You do not have to choose kids. It could be your best friend, your CPA, even us, your lawyers. I want it to be somebody that's reliable. If you're having a hard time deciding, call us, we're here to help. And for some of you, this is a tough question. Now remember, you can always change your mind, but if you fill out this whole form, except that one part, we can't type the trust for you. I want you to try to make a decision, and just keep in mind you can change your mind later. But we want to be sure that you have your binder signed when you're calm, cool, and collected. And I don't want you to wait until the last moment to turn in this paperwork. Page 5 at the very top, Roman numeral 10, it's going to ask, who is your family advisor? If you have a life insurance agent that you love to work with, put his or her information in here. If you have an investment advisor that you love to work with, put him or her information in there. If you don't even know who does your IRA or your 401k at that company that you've got, you don't have to fill in their information. I want this to be somebody that you know and you trust if you fill in their info. If you don't have an advisor, that's okay. Just put not applicable. Current monthly income. Like I said, we're trying to see if you're collecting enough money to boost you over $11 million. It's going to ask how much Social Security you're taking in, if you've got pension, if you've got rental money coming in, or if you have a salary. Use ballpark numbers, okay? Use guesstimates. I don't want you to get too caught up in getting exactly dollar amounts right, because if you're not near $11 million, we really don't need to crunch the numbers very hard. Okay, the next section is going to ask for your real estate. I want to know whether you have a mortgage or not. I want to know if you own your house, if you have any rental properties, if you have any timeshares or vacant land. If it's in the United States, I want you to list it. If it's not in the U.S., leave it off. We can't talk about foreign land in a U.S. trust. This is going to ask the street address, city, state, and zip. It's also going to ask a ballpark of the purchase price and a ballpark of the current value of the house. Like I said, don't get your house appraised. Just a guesstimate works. It's also going to ask for the parcel number. That is the number that comes on your property tax statements. This worksheet is also going to remind you we want to see a photocopy of your deed for your house. Now, I know some of you have refied back and forth and back and forth. We are looking for the deed from when you first purchased your house. I know that paperwork might be somewhere in the house, might be long gone. If you cannot find your deed, let me tell you how to get a copy of your deed. Number 1, you can go to the county recorder's office, go on their computers, type in your address and your parcel number and print it. They charge you about $7 to print the paperwork. You can call any friend you have who is a realtor or works at a title company or a mortgage company because they have access to the public record. You call your realtor friend, hey realtor friend, I need a copy of my deed. I can't find it. I'm doing my living trust. Can you get a copy of my deed for you? And that realtor, as a courtesy, will email you a copy of your deed. It takes just a few minutes for realtors to get a copy of the deed for you. And remember, you're not asking them for anything that isn't already public record. All of this is public information. If you don't want to go to the county and you don't have any friends that are realtors, yes, we can hire our title company to get a copy of your deed, but we do charge extra for that service. If you have a mobile home, we want to see the yellow slip. Sometimes it's a pink slip for the structure. We also want you to let us know, do you own the structure? Or do you own the structure and the dirt? Page 6 is going to ask your financial information. It's going to ask for checking, savings, CDs, mutual funds, other bank accounts. I want you to list what bank you use, what type of account it is, and approximately how much is in there. I know your bank account, the money in there changes, sometimes daily. I know some of you have direct deposit, direct withdrawals. I want you to know that we just need a guesstimate about how much is in your accounts. For example, you can write that your bank is Bank of America. You've got a checking account, has approximately $3,000 in it. Bank of America savings account, approximately $20,000 in it. Charles Schwab, you've got stocks at Schwab. You can just put in their information. This page is also going to ask all of your other securities. Stocks, bonds, brokerage accounts, commodity contracts, any securities you may have. Now, what is a security? It's an investment. I want you to list as much information as you can about your investment. Is it a stock? Is it a bond? Is it a CD? Is it some other kind of brokerage account? Now, I do not want you to list your retirement accounts in the stock section. I know your retirement account has stocks, but on page 6, we want to know if you play the stock market on your own. For example, if you have a TD Ameritrade account, or if you have a Robinhood account or an Acorn account. E-Trade. Page 7 is going to ask for all of your retirement information. We want to know what financial institution you use, what type of account it is. Is it an IRA, 401k? Is it a pension? Is it some other type of account like a Roth or a rollover? And the approximate value. Are retirement accounts going to be a part of the trust? Likely, no. As you may recall, when you signed up for your IRA and your 401k and your retirement accounts, they forced you to list a beneficiary. That bank already knows that if you pass away, who's going to get the inheritance. But our law firm, one of the things we do in your binder is we're going to put a list of all of your assets in the binder so your family does not accidentally overlook some of your retirement accounts. We want them to know where all of your bank accounts and all of your retirement accounts are all on one page, because after you're gone, they're grieving, they're stressed, they're emotional, and we don't want them to overlook your IRA and your 401k and your retirement accounts. Because let me tell you, if you pass away, your retirement financial institution is not going to come and find their kids and knock on the door and say, hey, we've got some money for you. Your kids need to know who to call. The bottom of page 7 is going to ask if you have insurance, life insurance, or annuities. Do not put your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance. Don't put your health insurance on there, or your mortgage, or your accidental death. We want you to list your life insurance and your annuities. In other words, if you pass away, is somebody going to inherit some money? If so, put it on this page. The last page is going to ask, page 8 is going to ask if you have any promissory notes. What does that mean? We want to know if you've loaned anybody money for their mortgage. Now, I know some of you have mortgages on your residence. I don't want you to list that there. We want to know if you were the bank and you gave somebody else some money. The middle section of page 8 is going to ask if you own any businesses. This could be a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an LLC, or a corporation. We also want to know what percentage do you own? And if it's registered, what state is your company registered in? Lastly, at the bottom of the page, we're going to ask if you have any significant chattel property. What does that mean? Chattel property is anything that's worth over $30,000 for one item. For example, you've got a Stradivarius violin. It's worth over 30 grand. I want you to list it. Your engagement ring may be worth 10,000. Don't list it. We want to know if you have any significant asset that's worth over 30 grand that's going to boost your estate over $11 million. Now, I have a lot of artwork, but it is not my artwork as a collection. It's, do you have one piece that's worth 30? Not, are all your pieces together worth 30,000? We also do this so your family doesn't accidentally sell a valuable item in the yard sale because they didn't know it was valuable. We've heard stories. Grandma had a ring. It was a red ring. It looked really pretty. They sold it in the yard sale for 20 bucks. Turns out it was a ruby. You can't get it back. So if it's worth over 30 grand, we want you to list it, but you don't have to beat yourself up over this section. We know that collectively, you've got valuable stuff in the house, and we always tell your kids, mom and dad passed away, maybe have a professional come in the house and just take a look to make sure you don't accidentally sell anything in the yard sale that's worth a lot of money. At the bottom of the page, it's going to ask for your signature before you submit this paperwork. Now, I have some families where one spouse fills out this whole form. That's okay. And the other spouse maybe is traveling or is busy and doesn't sign the form. That's okay too. But I want you to remember, when the binder is finished being typed, both spouses have to sign. Both spouses have to put their thumbprint in the notary book. Now, if you have any other questions that I haven't answered, you can call our office line for some help. Our number is 949-639-0431. And if we don't answer, leave a message and we'll call you back as soon as we can. I hope you found this instructional helpful, and have a great day.